Hey everyone. Wow, it's been a while since I've done a video. The last 4 or 5 weeks, close to 6 weeks, have been a pretty intense time. As you all know, had traveled on family vacation and came home and was able to go into the city for a week with my team, and that was lovely. And then, I had a week where I was feeling okay, and then I had about 3 or 4 weeks of not feeling well. And I first we thought maybe it was the flu. We thought it was because I was feeling like a little bit warm on the inside, like not like a low grade temperature, on and off migraines. I was not feeling great. I didn't really want to eat a lot. And that doesn't obviously feel good. And then I was having real challenges with sleep. I felt extremely dehydrated, even though I was drinking, three of my Stanley cups, which is their 40 ounces of pop. So it um, none of my meds were making me feel any better. Um, and so I couldn't figure out what was going on. But I just assumed it was the flu because it was going around, and I had talked to people and people were telling me colds and flu and COVID and whatnot was going around. So it made sense that that's what it was. About kind of a week and a half, 2 weeks into that, I had a conversation with my urologist about replacing my urinary tract stent. And that was set for the week after the 4th. And so, we knew my kidney was enlarged, or kind of not draining well, and that's why we needed to do the stent replacement. My urologist at the time shared, if this doesn't work, because this continues to happen, we're going to have to put the nephrostomy or nephrology tubes, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but into my kidneys externally, and then have these external bags to hold the urine. And, of course, this is not something I wanted. You guys all know that this has been a concern for me from the beginning to have bags. And so many of you, I so appreciate your support and just sharing people who's had similar stories and everything's been okay. But this has just been a place of fear that I have dealt with from the beginning. So, but at that point, we had no reason to believe anything was wrong outside of feeling the flu. The weekend of the 4th, my brother-in-law came up, and that day I kind of felt like I rallied, and I thought, okay, like maybe I'm turning a corner and everything's all right. But that weekend didn't feel good again. I ended up getting another migraine, not sleeping great. We had the surgery scheduled for the following week, and it's an in and out procedure. So you do get some anesthesia, but the procedure itself is like 10 minutes. You're in recovery for like an hour, and then you go home. So that was set for the following Thursday, and after the 4th. And Tuesday, I had to go to my primary care to get approved for surgery, just to make sure everything was okay. On the way to that appointment, I threw up in the car, and luckily have those bags in the car because of chemo. So I didn't make a mess in the car, but I got to the doctor's office and I just felt exhausted, like wiped out. And, they checked me for a bunch of things, and, they didn't see there was a problem anywhere. So on the way out of the doctor's office, I threw up violently again and was like, I don't know what is going on with me. So I mentioned this to the urologist, and he said, look, if tomorrow you're still not feeling well, I just don't want you to be dehydrated for the procedure. Go to urgent care, which we did. And in urgent care, they did a COVID test and a flu test, and it wasn't either of those. Part of my prep for this procedure is they do a urine culture, a 48-hour, just to make sure you don't have a UTI or anything like that. The urgent care did what they call a dip test, which is like, gets done right in the moment. They thought there might be some stuff in there. I think they identified it as like the word they used was like dirty or something. So they said, let's go on a medicine for UTI. And I said, oh, well, could UTI be what this is all about? Yes, for sure. The other thing to mention throughout that time was my stomach would hurt. And, I've lost a good amount of weight since April. And if you're friends with me, you've seen me on social media and when we went on our vacation. So you've seen like kind of how thin I've gotten. But I was losing more weight because I really wasn't able to keep food down. I wasn't able, honestly, regular food just didn't look appetizing. So I was drinking a lot of protein shakes, which, is not adding on weight. But the day of the procedure, I was okay. We did the procedure. Everything went extremely well. I actually felt so good afterwards. They gave me a hydration bag and I honestly felt like the old me. And I thought, okay, we've nailed it. Like so much better. That was a Thursday. That Friday, I didn't feel great, but I was exhausted, but I was like, okay, I mean, you had a procedure yesterday. And then Saturday and Sunday, it started up all over again where I just did not feel well. Monday was work and I had a busy day of work. Post procedure, I needed to get blood work done. And Monday was so busy, I forgot to go get my blood work done. And, Brian said on Tuesday, come on, we're going. I was like, oh, I'm so busy. He's like, I don't care, we're going. So we went. And at the end of the day, I got a call from the urologist and he shared with me that my kidney number was so high, my creatine number was so high that I needed to get to the ER like stat because something was seriously wrong with my kidneys. And I said, well, like right now, and it was like 5:00 at night. And he's like, well, you could go tomorrow morning because even if you go tonight, they can't operate. But I think we have to do those nephrostomy tubes. Like there's no other way around it. And I'm, freaking out. I can't believe I have to go to the ER. The last time I was in the ER was after I lost my daughter and with childbirth. And then, the next day I had an infection and I had to go back. And so it's just like a traumatic place to go. Yale ER has been great to me. So it's not about them, but it just holds this not great experience because of what happened with my daughter. But we got up the next day and we went in and they did a battery of tests. And, I was getting these migraines and they even did a CT scan on my head because I wanted to make sure cancer hadn't moved to my head. And, listen, in those weeks, I was like, what is going on with me? I mean, that thought popped in my head. So I was just so grateful they did all these tests. What they found out was both kidneys were failing. And it was that quick. And, we got in there at 9:30 or 10. And by 6:00 that night, I was in surgery to install the nephrostomy tubes. Brian said it and it's true. He's like, I was surprised you didn't have a freak out about the tubes themselves or the bags themselves. And I think part of that is because I was really having a lot of anxiety about the pain control that they were going to use. So when I had my port installed, one of the first things that they had to do before, obviously, you could get chemo, they didn't knock me out. And they used like a Percocet something. I didn't even know this at the time, but I know it now, and something blend. And you're kind of in twilight. What they did wrong was, first of all, I didn't know I wasn't going to be asleep. So nobody communicated that effectively. They might have said twilight and I didn't understand what that meant. So but I was wheeled into the operating room and they gave me something to calm me. And then they did a bunch of stuff and kind of putzed around. And then it was like, they went to put like the tarp on my chest to put the port on. And I was like, whoa, 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 I'm like awake. And then I started to panic and I'm like, you got to give me something because I'm awake. And like, I can't do this. Like, I'm awake. And I think they gave me stuff, but like, at that point, I think my adrenaline was so high. There was like nothing that I could do to calm myself. And the entire procedure, I just remember, they had to use the lidocaine. But this part of your body, like, it doesn't matter, how much fat you have on your body. And obviously, I'm much thinner now than I was back then. But there's not a lot of extra fat up here. So it was a very sensitive area. And I was very, very uncomfortable. So that to me is like worst case scenario in terms of pain. And so I was trying to figure out what they were going to do to support my pain management. And they said, well, unfortunately, we can't knock you out. We don't have an anesthesiologist on staff or available. Not on staff. They have many on staff, but they didn't have one available for that night. And the reason I had to go through the ER was because, and I couldn't schedule it for a week out, was because the situation was so dire that my kidneys would have failed even if I waited 48 hours. So I had to go. There was no real option. I mean, of course, I could have opted to let my kidneys fail, but that's not really logical and wouldn't have, made any sense. So, so I knew I had to choose the procedure. So I was trying to find out what my options were. And we talked about, look, I had this other procedure for my port and it wasn't the most comfortable. And, is there a way to check what I had there and cross check and see maybe I could have more than that? Or, there was something else they could do to help me with that. And she thought that was an interesting idea. She went back and checked. But she did check if there was an anesthesia available, and there wasn't. So, or anesthesiologist, and there wasn't. So I had like 2 hours of like, oh my God, how am I going to do this awake? If my kidneys are failing, you're going to stick needle in my back and you're going to put these tubes in there. Like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Now, I have a very high pain threshold with sports. So it's not that I can't handle a lot of pain, but I think the shock of this, and then the fact that I would have to do it like awake, and trying to remember the last time that happened was the port. It just was like a perfect storm. So I was all riled up. And finally she's like, are you in or out? I was like, well, I got to do it, of course. So let's just do it. So, at 5:00, she comes down and tells me like, look, there's nothing else we can do. This is all we can offer you, in or out. And I was like, I'm in. So they come down at 5:20, transport to bring me up to pre-op. And it's 5:30 and they're like, okay, we're going to, you're going to have to lay in your stomach. We heard you were concerned about that. And I said, yeah, because I had massive abdominal surgery last fall and I haven't really laid on my stomach in a year. So I don't know, almost a year, how that's going to feel. And to be honest, it was very uncomfortable, but I'm like, how long do I have to do this? For an hour. I'm like, okay. And I asked her again about the pain management and she shared what she knew. And, they moved so fast. At like 5:45, I was in the operating room. The head nurse in there came over and said, by the way, we looked at how much they gave you in pain management in the port procedure, and it was like enough to kill a horse. So there's no way we could give you the same amount. So again, I think that was my adrenaline. Like they were giving me stuff, but I wasn't reacting well because my adrenaline was so high. I can only assume. But I also then heard the message, like, you're not going to get near as much as what you got on the first one. So that was another thing where I was like, oh my God, what is this going to be like? The surgeon and his resident come out, which I can't really see because I'm on my stomach, but I asked them to give me the play-by-play. They agree to do so. And 2 minutes before we go time, the surgeon says, look, you're probably going to be fine. 93% of the people that go through this procedure, this pain medication works for them. And I was just like, oh my God, I wish someone had just said that to me from the beginning, because my pain threshold is higher than most people. So I can do this. My only frame of reference was the port. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. And when he said that, it just felt like all of a sudden, like, it's going to be okay. I had amazing friends, praying for me, asking me to have the best doctors in the room. And it just so happens I had one of the strongest surgeons in radiology. So I think that prayer was answered. He walked me through what they were doing. And even the first lidocaine pinch, which is kind of the worst part, was not even that bad. And after like 15 minutes, I would say, or something, he started to move, differently. And I said, okay, what comes next? And he's like, oh, we're done with the left side. I was like, what? And at that point, I don't even remember them doing the right side. I think I just was like, okay, I'm safe. I did get a little nauseous after the fact. And then I had a few days in the hospital. That was a Wednesday at 6. I got into the hospital room on Thursday. Friday, I asked to stay overnight one more night. They were going to discharge me, and I'm glad that I did not go home because I wasn't physically 100% yet. They did give me hydration bags. The internist, thank goodness, was like, "Look, you look dehydrated." I'm like, "Yes, I'm so dehydrated." And then they gave me a couple of bags of hydration, and thank God, it was so helpful, and I started to really feel like myself again. Friday night, I had like so much pain in my left side, like I said, 10 o'clock at night. I mean, if I had gone home and this happened, we would have gone to the ER. But I was like, I don't know what this is. I'm like, so much pain, and they're giving me pain meds and nothing's happening. And then we ended up finding out that my cord twisted, and so a couple hours later, we had figured that out because my bag wasn't filling, and that was the left side, which does all the hard, heavy lifting, because my right side's the one that's been injured this last 18 months. So we fixed it. That all got better, and we learned a valuable lesson, as the nurse shared with us. Whenever you have devices and you have a problem, you check the devices first. Went home that Saturday, and it's been about 2 weeks since I've been home. I got to tell you, it's been a very dark couple of weeks. I am just starting to see the light again. Physically, to feel as weak as I felt, the bags are temporary, but there is a belief that I have a tumor or two, I don't know, cancer tumor pressing on my ureter or urinary tract, and that's why my kidneys weren't draining effectively. So now my kidneys are working well. Now we have to get the cancer under control. Next up is a clinical trial. We're on the list for a particular clinical trial. We're doing some tests to see if I get in that one. If I don't get in that one, I'm hoping to get in the next one. I have a scan tomorrow, which I'm a little concerned about. Like any scan, I'm worried there's a bit more cancer in there. But the clinical trial isn't months away. I mean, it's weeks away kind of thing. So I do believe, God, in the universe, this is meant to be the next step. I got to tell you, the last couple months have been just so hard. I know I've said on this channel before, I don't believe in the phrase fight the cancer, because I actually want to heal myself. I don't see cancer cancer is not good for you, but it's part of my body. And I would rather use love than hate for it. As crazy as that sounds. But what I need to fight is my own negative story and reframing. I've talked about reframing in this channel over and over and over. And I think, for those of you that have gotten really stuck and had a hard time reframing and getting stuck in, like, why is this happening to me? I was there for the last 2 months. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was like, am I dying? Like, is this the end? The amount of times I wanted to give up, I was going to say I'm embarrassed to think of it. Fuck that. I'm not embarrassed. It's a reality. It's like every day is like another physical marathon. And after a while, I just want a break, and I feel like that's been the theme of this last year. Please give me a break. We went to Cape Cod last week, no swimming in the ocean or anything because of the bags. I'm wearing shorts and a sports bra because, the bags, like, or the cords get in the way of a bathing suit, and, all the things I love about the Cape. I mean, I was worried I wouldn't get, and it just felt like I was being robbed of yet something else. Will tell you, though, so many amazing people helped me along that journey. I know for so many of you have reached out. I was in a really dark place, and I apologize for not getting back to so many of you, but it's just been, honestly, I couldn't be positive. and it just didn't feel like me, and it was not a place I wanted to be social. Um, I posted recently a quote about, and it was so powerful, and it felt like my childhood in a quote. And it was something along the lines of, from a very young age, I was deemed capable. And so my mom, I was one of four kids, and she worked a full-time job, and she had a lot on her plate. And because I was capable, I was allowed, not allowed, but kind of required to do a lot on my own. But the impact of that is I felt very lonely. And and also I felt that nobody was really there to help me. And I'm not saying that's a truth, I'm just sharing how it felt. Um, and and so in many ways, even as an adult, when I'm coping with something really intense, um, my first instinct is to go inside and to kind of burrow in. Um, and the best thing I can do is talk about it. So I'm so grateful to Brian because he holds so much of that weight, and that weight could be about dying, and I don't know if I can do it anymore. And look, I'm pretty skeletal at the moment. I have never been as thin as I am as an adult, and I would say for all of us women in menopause, like, oh, it seems like not such a bad problem to have, but um, it's just I'm I'm slowly rising. My strength is slowly coming back, and I'm slowly putting on pounds again, and I'm eating again, and the water is working, and I'm feeling hydrated, and my sleep is disjointed, but I'm working on it. The ends of the day tend to be the hardest part because that's where I end up feeling sorest, more sore. I don't know if sorest is a word, but my legs are achy, my back, and then I cranky, and then I start to get sad, and a lot of crying. um, I wanted to do videos up to now, but it just would have felt mostly like me crying, and which is okay. And I know I commit to you guys that I will come on here and share how I really feel, but there's something to processing it and then sharing it. And I think some things I'm learning right now that I want to share with you guys. One, one of my biggest fears is that everybody thinks and knows I'm going to die. And I'm like the only idiot that doesn't. And so I'm like, oh, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. And I was talking to my healer, Susan, and she said, you're not at that place physically where anybody's telling you you're going to die. So you get to still make this call. Do you want to be here or not? You get to make this call. And I commit to you, and I commit to myself, I want to be here. I'm not ready to go yet. I want to be here, and I'm not ready to go yet. I'm in control of that story. Nobody else is. And I don't care what other people think. It's not up to anybody but me. This is not about me laying down and not doing treatment and whatever. This is about me picking my end zone. What is my end zone and getting there? And I don't need anybody to tell me what that is. And this isn't a rebuke to any of you, but I'm saying it more as a kind of a moment of strength for myself. It doesn't matter what other people think on that front, because I have the power to manifest this, and I will manifest it, and I will do everything in my power to get to that end zone where I am here for quite a long time. So that's number one. Number two, I think I had this amazing quote back on July 4th, and I was really low that day, and it really helped me, and I want to share this with you guys. I know I shared it on social media, but the quote was doing a compare-contrast between confidence and conviction. And confidence is something we learn, when we do something over and over, right? And we're good at it. And, let's say you're an amazing presenter and you do a great job on it. But every time you present, I don't know, you have a favorite pin you wear, just making up something silly. And you're going to do a big presentation and you forget your pin. Well, your confidence can wobble, but you can still convince yourself that, like, look, I'm better than the pin, and you can get back in there. But your confidence, you can wobble. It can shake a little bit. Conviction is your purpose. It's your highest calling. It's beyond everything else. So for me, my conviction in this life is to heal people, to be a healer and to be of service to other people. That is greater and more important to me than anything I am currently doing. It's greater than my job. My job is small potatoes compared to that. It's greater than cancer, because cancer is teaching me to heal myself so that I can be a resource and a light to other people. It's greater than my current pain. It's my purpose. It's my highest calling. And I share this with you, and I've shared it with a couple people, because your conviction is why the fuck you're here. It's the whole reason you're here. So I'm using it as my life preserver, as my inner tube, to remind myself this pain, this healing is here to help other people. And I always say it, but this is my mountain to move, and I'm committed to moving it. Today is my 50th birthday, and in many ways over the last couple of months, I didn't know if I'd make it. Pain has been a lot. Who knows what the hell's going to happen next? And it's scary. To know I'm not, it's one thing to be like, okay, I have these bags and whatever, I'll figure out the bags. But to know I'm not like done yet, the bags are temporary, and when the cancer is cured, the bags will come out. How long is that going to take? I don't know. And this desire to control it's a lie. Your ego wants to control all the things around you and make it right so you can feel safe. And that's not a way to live our lives. We should be centering ourselves. I should be centering myself in my conviction, centering myself in God and the universe, centering myself in love, and focusing on each day. And as I focus on each day, I try to make that day as impactful as I can make it, as loving as I can make it. And for me, I'm also working on making it more gentle for myself. I really want to rush through this because I really am tired and I want to be done with it. But that is just not how it works. I'm not in control of what happens next. I'm in control of my actions, but there's a bigger plan, and I have to trust. And it's hard to do. It's very hard to do. So I think I am very much a work in progress, as are all of you. And I want you to know I'm doing better. I had a beautiful friend of mine, Elise, say, and I think a few other of you have said this to me too, which is, what if everything goes right? I'm just so used to running the risks, running the scenarios on everything going wrong. Well, what if everything goes right? What if this is all meant to be, and it brings me greater gifts, brings all of you, I can bring the world greater healing than I could ever imagine? Is it worth it? It sure is. You just don't know how strong you are until you're in it. I saw somebody say that no matter how much you brace for something bad to happen in your life, like for those of us who have elderly parents and you worry about them passing and what life would be like without them, and you worry about it and you think about it and you try to prepare for it, you can never really prepare for it, because when that moment happens, it changes you for good. It just changes you. It alters who you are. And look, none of us want to lose the people we love, so I'm not saying it's a good thing, but change is it's a part of human life. Pain is a part of our lives. And just to know when the moment comes What I'm learning is just you're much stronger than you realize you are. So I guess in a way, the last couple weeks, I have felt like I haven't been able to trust myself because when I had a headache, I tried to fix it with, with Tylenol or a washcloth or falling asleep and would wake up and still not feel well. I started almost like not trusting my body. And in many ways, and I learned this a long time ago as a recovering perfectionist, perfectionism is about trying to control everything to make it all perfect so that you could avoid being yelled at, right? You could avoid people thinking less of you. And the opposite of that is to trust yourself. Just trust you could do it. And it's like pulling all that energy back into yourself instead of outside yourself. And it just occurs to me when I wrap this all up that I've spent the last 6 weeks not trusting my body, not trusting what could happen. And I am much stronger than I ever realized I was. And in many ways, I've said this before, when you guys say to me, Molly, you're so strong, you're the strongest person I know. I didn't really believe it. And I'm starting to. So on my 50th birthday today, thank you to all of you for your well wishes and all your notes and sending things. I'm grateful for this loving community. I'm grateful for all of you checking in. I'll slowly get back to each one of you, I promise. And I'm better today than I was yesterday. And I promise to keep putting one foot in front of another. Thank you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Be well.